We do need to get to the news this past weekend and the way it broke down and some of the things that happened this weekend. We did not get a chance to talk about the latest transfer portal news here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, aside from a couple of minutes, maybe even 30 seconds on our post Blue White recap video. But we're joined now by Sean Fitz, who was busy doing some stuff over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, is here now to join us on the show to talk about transfer portal news. So I want to, this is always my struggle. I like to go chronologically, which also means we're starting with Trebor Pena, which at this point is ancient news. There's also linebacker news from Sunday to get to. And Fitz was also working on some stuff from this weekend. I don't know what is and is not behind, his premium at this point, because I don't know, what was in the title, what wasn't in the title. So Fitz, I'm just going to toss the transfer portal to you. What do you have to talk about? And where would you like to start in our transfer portal conversation? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you welcoming me, as somebody else let out an audible sigh when I joined. So Nate, thank you for that as well.
I'm happy that you're here. I can stop talking.
It's pretty busy right now in terms of what Penn State is trying to accomplish to fortify its roster in 2025. You start chronologically, that's fine. Trebor Pena committed to Penn State or signed with Penn State over the weekend, was confirmed signed yesterday morning by Pete Nakos at On3. One of those ones that we were watching after he visited originally, went through the week. News came up he was going to go to Miami, go to UCLA. I think USC was mentioned as well, but no, Penn State was able to lock that one down and keep it behind their own paywall until Saturday, where it's funny because the window shut on Friday. So you sign that guy on Thursday, maybe there's some movement in the receiver room, but that did not happen. So quality addition for Penn State in a commitment to flipping that room and a commitment to doing what is necessary to right the wrongs of the end of the 2024 season. I mean, we've talked so long about the culture and upsetting the locker room and everything like that. They've gone ahead and just flipped it because the need was so dire, because it was so obvious there in your face coming out of the Orange Bowl. So Penn State adds a third transfer receiver. I mean, that's a pretty crazy sentence in itself. When you take a look at how Penn State has used the transfer portal in the last 4 years, it's not really an overhaul situation. It's more of a patching holes situation.
Right.
So they kind of did both with this cycle.
How does we've talked a little bit about it here on the show, but now that it's official, I want to get into the fit with Penn State, the overall impact you think in terms of, obviously everything's a projection, and you're not going to have the concrete answer until the ball is in the air. Ari Wasserman says that Penn State is now the number one team going into the fall because of this addition of Trebor Pena. Do you feel a similar way? I'm not asking, do you think yes or no that? Do you feel that this is the positive momentum to put Penn State over the top? And how do you view their positioning now with reducing the amount of holes on the roster? Like, was this a big enough addition where you're on the same brain path as what Ari wrote over yesterday at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com about that?
I mean, it has the potential to be. It's never one player, right? It's never not a quarterback, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about with how much does this change the perception of Penn State going into 2025? It doesn't change a ton for me, but you look at getting that room and adding reinforcements to that room and having all of a sudden three guys that were, I think at least two of them were captains, three guys that were productive at their last stop. And that's really what you're going about thinking about this is, are these guys full bore NFL prospects? I'm not sure, but they've caught a lot of passes in different offenses at different levels. Of course, Troy is a completely different level, as they've harped on several times for weight training, nutrition, all that kind of stuff is all new to Devontae Ross. So he has that opportunity to continue to grow as a player and a pro prospect over the next couple of months because of what's available to him that wasn't available to him prior. He's kind of like a freshman. He's kind of like when you're bringing in a guy has not had weight training. Well, I mean, has had some weight training from outside and has this guy that he goes to, but all of a sudden he goes to Chuck Losey, and the guy that he went to turns out he didn't know all that much. So that's what we're looking at with that. And then Trebor Pena is certainly not going to match the numbers that he put up at Syracuse, but if he can put up numbers with more substance behind them, and I know Syracuse was a great passing offense last year, but he had 4 guys over 60 catches. Eventually that's going to be watered down like an old Texas Tech type guy. That's what we're looking at there. But he's caught a lot of passes, and he's done some nice things in winning some one-on-one battles. He's a tough kid. He comes highly regarded by those around him, even those that are being spurned in this effort. It's like you walk away from Penn State and they're going to call up, or at least call up intermediaries to set something up and talk about, hey, is this guy actually worth it? And people around him at Syracuse, whether they're still there or not, kind of stamped him there. So there's that. Yeah. And then there's Kyron Hudson, who did some nice things on Saturday. And I think that you're looking at this room fairly differently. Like it's not going to change. And flipping, every time we're going to bring up receivers, somebody's going to say, well, I'm not going to believe it until we see it in games. Great. That's fantastic. That's what everybody's already saying. Like, you don't have to say it again.
Right.
We know, and we're the same way. Like, we want to see these guys in action. We want to see these guys, especially in the first 3 weeks of the season. That's not going to matter either to people.
Right.
Oregon's week 4. That's where we're at with those guys. But they have the potential to do so based on the production that they put together, based on their body of work, based on the, I think, the ability to come in, and I don't want to say yes, it's already upset the room, like upset in terms of numbers, in terms of it looks very different than it did last year.
Yep.
But Hudson was a captain. Pena was a captain. These guys know team stuff too. This is a mercenary situation, but it isn't a situation where it's
not the murkiest mercenary situation. They're not going out and just getting guys that wanted money. They're going out and guys that are looking for fit in situation much as they are.
You're not scrolling around on Madden and adding the highest attribute guy. Just, you don't know anything about him. These guys have been vetted. These guys have been overly analyzed to see if they can fit in the room, and I think they can, because you've got other veterans in there like Liam Clifford, who started on Sunday, and then you've got the younger guys that showed some flashes, like Tasir Denmark, and Lyric Samuel caught the touchdown, and Kobe Howard's in there. So you're starting to see a base that works with this, and if you can bridge that gap and get those younger guys another year of development before they have to be the guy, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So just to follow up on something you said there of, yes, we all are waiting to see it happen before we believe it. But if you just dismiss everything before then, you're obviously going to miss the signs of change. When you said, they have gone through and they have changed the way they're approaching this particular position by going out and getting 3 transfer portal receivers. They have overhauled that room in a big way. 10 players over the last 2 years since Marcus Hagan got here have left the room, and they've added 3 now in the portal. They've obviously added recruits and young players. The overhaul has been happening. As much as Penn State fans don't want to hear about it until somebody gets a big-time catch in a big-time game, we're trying to document the process of saying, okay, so these things are different, and some of these things, I will say again, that I have harped on a couple of things here when it comes to fit and need, and you want good receivers. And these are guys that are professional receivers in terms of they play the position well. They still have, Trebor Pena is going to come in here, I would assume, and play the slot. They've got a lot of those guys. You look at the way the guys that got targets in the game, and the guys that in the blue-white game that you saw, Tasir Denmark making plays, Kobe Howard making plays, those guys were rotating in the slot over on the white team. You're going to get Devontae Ross some schemed throws in the slot, which they did again during the blue-white game. There's a lot of that. So there is still, this isn't a bulletproof roster. They didn't add the missing link, but they did add resiliency, I think, and professionalism to the lineup in guys that you feel like you can trust. Stephen Light here in the chat says, let's roll back the Natty talk. If we get decent wide receiver play, we can be usually strong on defense. We can contend. Yeah, I think, that referring to what Ari Wasserman was talking about in terms of they're the number 1 team and the front runner for a championship. All those things I think are fair. And so I just wanted to give him a shout out for donating to the channel and let everybody know on the podcast side, that's what kind of prompted this conversation here on the show. Nate, any thoughts here that you want to add before we move on to a different position in the portal?
Yeah, I do. I think we're glossing over. They lost good receivers, right? So turning over the room is one thing. That's fine. And warrants mentioning. However, the 2 guys that they lost, they didn't want to lose those guys. If they could have a senior Trey Wallace this year and a senior Omari Evans this year, mindset, demeanor aside, I think that the whole point of those guys was who they were going to be as upperclassmen. And so I don't know about you, but I think those guys are going to have good years this year. And so if you could have maybe swapped the middle of the depth chart out while adding the guys that you added and had that collection at the top of the depth chart to compete and swap out, it would have been a more favorable situation. But if you're asking me, like, we're gonna not crush, but like, Trey Wallace had a productive season last year. It wasn't a bad year. I didn't think. Did he make the elite plays that needed to be made in elite moments? No. But if you had to give him the opportunity to do it again this year, you're betting against him in that moment. I'm not sure I would. In areas that now the guys that you're asking to make those plays are, I don't think, any more proven.
No, that's entirely fair. Yeah, that's entirely fair. We are coming up against the end of the show here, believe it or not. So we got a couple other things we need to talk about, including Fitz's recruiting update from the weekend. So let's get into the latest thing on Sunday, I believe. Penn State in pursuit of a portal linebacker. And this is not me going and just saying that. James Franklin made it very clear that the team was looking for a linebacker. And he had a lot to say on that. I had that quote. I have to see if I have it ready to go. I don't. But Fitz, just the reporting we have from On3 and Pete Nakos. What do you know about the linebacker pursuits after the blue-white game ended on Saturday?
Well, I don't really have to say much that James Franklin didn't address, like, on the nose. Like, he realized that the portal window was already closed, and he's going to have an opportunity to bring somebody in without really upsetting the room. Now, if you bring somebody in, you're upsetting the room. I don't know what to tell you, because there's no portal window, which is one of these fundamental flaws we talked about before. But Penn State is going to look for a linebacker. Somebody mentioned Shea Taylor from Ohio in the chat. He is following his coach to Charlotte, so he is off the board. He was a guy that they offered to kind of gauge interest and figure out where he's at. But you're looking at a couple of guys right now, primarily Mohamed Toure from Rutgers and Amare Campbell from North Carolina. Both guys that bring different aspects, but production in a past life, especially with Toure, who missed the 2024 season with a torn ACL and also missed 2022 with a torn ACL. Really good player at Rutgers, older brother of Babu Toure. So there's some connections there. So he probably knows how things work in the program pretty well here. Really respected by Greg Schiano. And, I got a lot of respect for Greg Schiano in terms of like what he's been able to do with the situations that he's had. And he was a two-time captain for Schiano. I think that says something. And going back to what we said about the receivers, Penn State's looking for not just hired guns in the terms of making their roster better, but guys that can fit and guys that can continue the culture that they're trying to put together there. So those two guys are ones that jump out at me. Nate wrote over the weekend about Amare Campbell visiting. Pete Nakos from On3 reported that originally as well. So like Penn State is being aggressive, like going out and getting it. They were without Tony Rojas and Dakari Nelson. So the numbers probably don't look as bad as they did, on the practice field there in the spring when they would have 4 or 5 guys going through drills. But it's a situation where they want to fortify some things and be versatile, get some different guys that can do different things and feel comfortable with it. If you're looking for the proof of Penn State, like going all in, making a run, this is a position that would be typically a want. And James Franklin came out and said it's a need. So that's kind of where I'm at with those. But yeah, Penn State's going to be hyper aggressive with those guys to figure out if they can plug those holes that they see in the roster.
Yeah, and just to kind of, again, to underline what you were saying there, I think Anthony Specca played every single snap for the blue team defense this weekend. And on the other side, you had Kari Jackson and LeVar Arrington the second, both playing significant snaps for the white team. Again, they might have played every single snap. So not just from getting those guys experience, not just wanting to get as many live reps for them as possible, but you had Winston Yates, I think, was it, in terms of guys you could cycle in on either side. And so those numbers and the injuries and all of those things adding up, I think is absolutely fair.
In terms of why they see a need for immediate help, I just think it's a numbers game more than anything. And, you're not necessarily asking for an all Big Ten starter in the portal, but you are asking for, hey, let's elevate what you have behind those top couple of guys to make sure that if there is an injury, you're doing better, and maybe more important than if there is an injury, preventing that injury in the first place by not overloading your starters with reps.
And it's so I think Fitz has outlined this pretty well of the difficulty trying to find a guy who wants to come, maybe not be a starter, but it sounds like there's more reps to be had at this point than expected. So it might be a little bit easier to get guys who can come in and play than guys who are going to just be a depth piece who are going to see snaps here and there. I just got the sense this weekend that there are more reps available. I understand Tony Rojas wasn't out there. Dakari Nelson, as much as I've liked his potential as a guy wherever he landed to be a versatile coverage player with size, nobody knows what that's going to look like this year, especially this year, if not, in the future of his career. So finding somebody who can actually get into the lineup and make plays, I think twofold. The difficulty is you didn't have spring football, and that's a knowledge position. Linebacker is absolutely a knowledge position in the defense. So even if a guy comes to the team, maybe right away they're not part of this. There is going to be a storm you got to weather, depending on how smart the player is and how much they get integrated during camp in the fall. Because linebacker is a position where it's a little bit harder. It's not receiver. It's not quarterback, where you can do a lot of this work in the offseason.